everybody, Christina here, and we're going to be coloring Wonder Girl Meadow, but I'm going to color her with a Loki outfit just because I thought that would be a little bit fun. And I'm going to start off with E11, and I'm just going to go around her face where her hairline is, put some shadows in there. I'm going to be going around her hands, her arm, and her legs. But just a tip, if you decide to color her like Loki, like I have, I was looking at an image of Tom Hiddleston dressed up as Loki, and when I was coloring this, I'd already colored her legs, and I was like, darn, I should have colored her legs as if they were pants. So if you would like to do the pants option, I would hold off until I start coloring the green parts and then do her legs then. But other than that, I'm going to be coloring her legs as skin, and right now I'm just going around all the shadowed parts of where the sun may or may not hit her on her skin, her face, her legs, her hand, and her arm. After this, I'm going to pull it out a little bit with the E21, and I'm going to go around her eyes just so that it'll give her eyes a little bit of depth, but it also, for the main part, it will help me from coloring in the whites of her eyes with the other colors. So you can see I kind of go around her eye, because the whites of her eye, that black part there, if you're new to our stamps, the black part is actually her eyelashes. So there's a little bit of the white of her eye that is supposed to be right there. So, and I'm just going around to the rest of the E11 and pulling that out so slightly, leaving some white still. Now I'm going to do her cheeks, and I start out with R20, and it is a little bit dark, so I don't go out all the way, because I'm going to be pulling that out and blending it with some R30 right after this, just so that it will tone it down a little bit and just make it nice and soft and blend it in a little bit. I do go back up by her eye for those of you that are new to our videos, just so that it will kind of make her face one piece. I tend to feel that when I do just her cheeks, and this is just me, my coloring, when I do her cheeks, they kind of, it looks like it's cut off if I don't go up by her eye. Right now I'm just smoothing out some of the colors with E00, and I'm pulling all the E11 and E21 out because I like to have a nice smooth blend. Now I'm going to finish it all out with E000, and that'll also help me blend out some of the color and make it look a little bit more smooth. So I did look at the image again of Tom Hiddleston and realized that he had a little bit of a kind of like darker skin, kind of a little bit of a tan going on. So I decided to go back in with E11. Now, if you decide you like the skin the way that it looks, leave it alone, because this is going to be your card and your coloring, so it needs to be your style. And I really just want to, I show you guys what I do so that, you know, you can get your own style from everybody that you learn from. So after doing the E11, I'm going back in with the E00 just to smooth it out some more, because I'm not one that likes the harsh dark contrast shadow lines. So I tend to smooth everything out and make it look nice. Now I'm going to go on to the hair, and I'm going to be using the C family markers to do the hair. And I'm starting with C6, and I'm just pulling it down from the crown of her hair, or the crown of her head, and pulling the hair strands down. I am doing very thin flicks. If you have problems doing thin flicks, It could be the pressure that you're putting on your marker. I don't hold my markers really tight. I always tell other friends or other people that are learning from me, make sure you're holding your brush, your marker like a paintbrush, not like a color crayon. So you just want to hold it kind of nice and light and just put very, very light pressure. I know it looks like I'm doing a lot of strokes by going back and forth, but sometimes I do such light pressure that I'm actually missing the paper and not even touching it. So I have to go over it again. So now I've started from the top, I've switched her around a little bit, and I'm going to come down from the bottom. That way I can get that nice highlighted bit right through the middle, and I don't have to draw a crazy line through the middle of her hair. I can just go from the bottom and then go from the top, and it's all naturally there while I'm coloring. One of the hard things that I'm sure people are wondering about is the waves in her hair. So that is one thing that I'm happy that I'm using a dark color so that I can help everybody see where those curves and waves and things are supposed to go. And I'm just getting all the little strands of hair coming up from her cape. And now we're going to be doing some of the waves in her hair. So this part of her hair, even though the tips would be getting some sun, they're kind of underneath each other as well. So that's why I did put a little bit of color on them. Now, the part that is swooping down the hill that looks like it's in the valley is going to look like it is at its darkest because it's not going to get quite as much light as the rest of it. So that's why I'm coloring in the valley instead of on the very, very edge tips of her hair. So I'm just going to get a little bit of the tips that are going down. Now I'm going to move on to C4. And I'm going to be pulling some more of the C6 out. And just really getting in there to see exactly what it's going to look like with the lighter color. That way I don't go too far with the color. And I'm just pulling all of this out. Now the back behind her neck is going to be a little bit darker than that, and I will go back in there and do it with a darker color here just in a little bit, because back behind her neck is not going to get any light. And I'm just getting all those swoops now and waves in her hair. And I like going in with the lightest color like this so that, you know, like I said, I can see what's going on, exactly how dark do I want to make her hair. Now I'm going to move on to C7. And we're going to make this just a little bit darker. And I'm just going to be going over all the places that I just did, and I'm just starting to build color now. And you'll see that I'm kind of going over, the same routine where I do the top and then I flip it over and come up from the bottom. And I will go ahead and do this until I feel that everything looks right. C7 is definitely not going to be the darkest color that I use for her hair. It's actually going to be C8, so we can put some contrast lines in there if you feel like you're losing some of the lines or some of the pattern of the hair. Don't worry, we will be going over that with the C8 so that we can bring those lines forward and make some of her hair look like it's in the back and like some of it is moving forward. I always have a lot of fun with the contrast lines. So since I'm going over the same areas, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this a little bit faster so that you don't have to sit through all of this, since it's basically the same thing. So now I'm just finishing up with the C7, and it's going to go a little bit faster here. I'm just getting all of the highlights to where they are actually highlighted and bringing in some more shadows. With the C8 that I'm using now, I'm going to be making more contrast lines and making things just a little bit darker in the areas, like right here around her face. I just did some contrast, making that hair in the back a little bit darker to bring her face forward and just giving more depth to my image. And drawing lines like I'm about to do right there, it will bring a lot more depth to your images when you do that, just by simply drawing a line to make one piece of hair look as if it's more forward than the other piece. And I'm just getting a little bit more right on the ends here so that I can make those highlighted pieces really stand out. So after I'm finished with this, I will move on to C5 to blend it out a little bit and make it look a little bit softer, instead of making it look all kind of chunky, and just make it look a little bit more smooth, like nice movie star hair. Now that we've finished with her hair, we're going to move on to her outfit. I'm going to start out with green. When I was looking at Loki's photo, it looked like the brown on his suit was, or his costume, whatever you want to call it, had more of a green undertone. So I'm going to be starting out with doing everything green. Right now I'm using the Go5, the lightest color, just to go ahead and kind of map out where I want my shadows to be at. And I'm just putting some right up where to make it to where it looks like it's kind of billowing in the wind, because she is supposed to be flying in the air. And you can see I'm kind of thinking by flicking my pen around and such. So just getting underneath and making sure that it all comes out right, and getting the edges of her boots. And it was kind of funny because when I very first started this, I didn't think of completely doing Loki. I was actually just going to make her green and gold. But then I started using just the green, which you'll see here in a minute. And she started kind of looking like the Lucky Charms leprechaun. So that's when I decided to look at the photo, which photos are a great source when you're coloring something. Even if you're not trying to color like a character, they're still a great source for flowers or anything that you want to color, to try to get those colors and see how to, kind of mimic what they look like. Now I'm using the G09, which is a darker color. It's the second to the darkest color I end up using for the greens. And I'm going through and I'm going right over the top of that G05 to bring all the shadows in that I wanted. And we'll bring them out a little bit more with a darker color, but for right now I'm just using the G09. So I'm just making sure that I go over all of the G05, and I'm actually pulling it out just a little bit because I'm not going to be using a whole lot of different colors. I actually only use about 3 or 4 different colors when it comes to the G colors. So now I'm using G07 and I'm just filling in more of the white but leaving a little bit so I can put the G05 back in there. And this isn't quite cutting it for everything that I want to do, so I will be going in with G29 in a little while. So just getting all the parts that I want to have as green. And I am going up a little bit on the ruffles or on the pleats, just so that it has more of a rounded look. Going over her boot again, making sure I don't miss this one because I am really bad at missing ears and things, so better not miss the boot. Now I'm going back in with the G05 and I'm going to be finishing everything out that I started coloring with green. Sorry about the shaking of the camera. Meadow was sitting down at the desk and shook it about a little bit. So these ones I kind of go over a little bit as a half circle just to make it look a little bit rounded, because if you take your marker and you're doing a straight line versus a curved line, it's going to look more of the way that you color it. So when I'm doing her cape, I try to make it more of a curved line. Now I'm going to move on to G29, and I'm putting some contrast lines in there to give it a little bit more shadow and contrast. And I'm going to go ahead and go around all the deeper shadow parts that I've got just to give it some more contrast. And right here, her other arm is supposed to be tucked in behind that part of her cape. That's why it looks like she's only got one arm. So I was just making a couple of lines to make it look like you could actually see that there is an arm underneath there. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, obviously. I'm just letting you know why I was making those lines at the top. So getting some more shadow on her boots. Now I'm going to move on and pull out this out a little bit with the G09. And I know that the end numbers are both the same, so you're kind of wondering what I'm doing. But with the 0 in the front there, it does make this color a little bit lighter than the G29. So just pulling that out, making it look a little bit more smooth. And then I'm going to hit it with the G05 again, just to smooth that out, because it's looking a little choppy to me. So here we go with the G05. And right about here is when I decided that she started looking like a bit of a leprechaun. So that's when I stopped to look at Loki's photos so I could be sure I was trying to get the same thing. And one of the nice things about using a lighter color and then going over it with a darker color, like right now I'm using W5, is that even though I'm using a darker color, it just changes that darker color and gives it a little bit, like right now I'm going to end up getting more of a green undertone to the W5. Now if you go too dark, it's just going to go ahead and make the whole thing dark. And that's why I decided to just use W5. And I do go a little bit darker, but not too much. I'm at least mapping it out right now, where I want the undertones to be and how light or dark I want it to be. So using some W4 now, and just pulling that W5 out. And you can see even using the W's as a little bit of a shadow, those pleats are really coming out and you can really, they're starting to look a little bit more round. Now I'm moving on to W7 so I can have a little bit more of a shadow. And just trying to make it look a little bit more like it's supposed to be brown, but I still want those green undertones. I kind of wish I would have put the photo of Loki that I was using on the screen so that you guys could see what photo I was looking at, but I did not think about that until just this moment. So now we're going to use some W6 just to bring that out a little bit more. Hopefully you can see that there's a little bit of a green undertone to the brown. Or I guess I should say the blackish brown. Now we're going to move on to W5, and we're just going to smooth this out a little bit more. And then I will finish it off with some W4. But I really wanted to show you guys how even though you're using one color, you can always change the color, and you know, it might make it a little bit lighter, might make it a little bit darker. I also did that with the Wolverine Wonder Girl that I did. I used E11 to make the Y19 look a little bit like a brownish yellow, like Wolverine's outfit. because the yellow just wasn't quite dark enough. So after this is done, we're going to go ahead and do the gold parts of her outfit. And we're going to start with Y21. And we're going to do the belt around her waist and the belt that's going through, or the material that's going through her little skirt. And then we'll do the tops of her boots and the soles of her boots. After the Y21, we're going to go ahead and use Y26. And the Y21 was pretty much just to get the Y26 to look a lot brighter. Oh, I forgot we were going to use E84 to go ahead and get the dark parts. A lot of people use Y28 for this part, but for some reason my Y28 tends to get sticky and gross. So I just go to E84 and it works just as nice. So now I'm just going to go over the whole thing with Y26 to make those gold colors. And then I'm going to go back in with my G29 for just a second, just because I want to bring out that contrast a little bit better. And we're going to go ahead and do her eyes after this. And we're going to do her eyes blue. And I'm going to start out with B05 for the darker part of her eyes. Or excuse me, B04, but it's dry. So that's why I said B05. I'm just going to do the very top part of the eye. And then I'm going to use B01. And I'm going to pull the B05 out just slightly. And then I'll go over the rest of the iris with the B000. Now to get the shadow for her eyes and make her eyes really come to life, I use a C0 and a C or a C1. I was going to use C1, but it was a little bit dry, not doing what I wanted it to do. Trying it again just to see if it would work. And so now I'm using C0 so that I can get the desired effect that I want, which is the shadow from your eyelids. And then I messed up just a little bit, so I'm cleaning it up with my colorless blender, pushing that back into the line. And then we'll use a white gel pen after this to put the sparkles in her eyes and on her clothes. And we are just about done. Now the sparkles are something that you don't have to put if you don't want to. I know a lot of people don't like to use the white gel pen because it just blobs up and it's just not very easy to use for everybody. I do use the Japanese import of the gel pens that I have. This, I don't know how to pronounce it, the Siglo. I will have it below in the comments and in your downloaded PDF. And I'm just going around and cleaning up where I went out of the lines with my colorless blender now. I am a very messy colorist at times. So just getting some on that gold belt and the gold material, putting some on her cape, and then I believe I put some on her shoes as well. And that is pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and I hope you enjoy making the projects that go with her. I will see you very soon. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.